It started with a knock at my door at 2 a.m. and ended with me testifying against my own brother in federal court. I wish I could say I'm exaggerating, but nothing about this was normal or even survivable. Most days, the night it all began, I was half asleep on the couch after working a double shift when I heard the knock. I thought it was a neighbor or something, until the pounding got louder and louder, and then came the shouting. It was my niece's voice, screaming my name from the porch, begging me to open the door. When I finally pulled it open, she was barefoot, covered in bruises and crying so hard she could barely breathe. She looked at me like I was the only safe place on earth and collapsed into my arms. She was only 13. I rushed her inside, called 911, and tried to calm her down enough to explain what happened through her tears. She told me that my older brother had snapped, that he'd thrown a bottle at her during a drunken rage and tried to shove her down the basement stairs, and that my sister-in-law just watched. I could barely process the words. I'd known my brother had issues. We all did, but this was beyond anything I'd ever imagined. When the cops arrived, they took my niece to the hospital, and I gave a statement as best I could. The next day, CPS called, and that was the first of many sleepless nights. My niece was placed in emergency custody with me while they investigated, and I thought that would be the end of it. I thought once the bruises were documented and her story was heard, they'd step in and protect her. I was wrong. CPS ended up placing her back with her parents 2 weeks later and said there wasn't sufficient evidence of long-term abuse. Apparently, 13-year-olds making up stories about being shoved downstairs is just a thing now. My niece screamed when they came to take her back. She clawed at my arms and begged not to go, but I couldn't stop them. I wasn't her legal guardian. My brother didn't speak to me for weeks after that. When he finally did, he accused me of manipulating his daughter and turning her against him. He said I was trying to steal his kid like I was some evil stepmother in a Disney movie. And the worst part was, our mum believed him. She called me ranting about family loyalty and how kids lie, and that I should have kept my mouth shut. I started documenting everything after that. Every time my niece called me crying, every time she had a new bruise she couldn't explain, I kept a file and logged every text, every voicemail, everything. It became an obsession. I stopped sleeping. I stopped seeing friends. I told myself that if I just kept collecting proof, eventually someone would listen. 3 months later, I got a call from my niece's school saying she'd shown up with a busted lip and a sprained wrist again. I called CPS again. They said they'd open a new investigation, but I knew how that would go. I was done waiting for permission, so I called a lawyer and asked what it would take for me to petition for custody. Turns out the answer is hell. To get temporary custody, I needed to prove both parents were unfit, not just abusive, but incapable of providing basic care. I needed evidence that no one else in the family could step in, and that I could support her financially, emotionally, and physically. It took every penny I had to retain a family court attorney, but I didn't care. My niece had become the only thing I cared about. Meanwhile, my brother lost it. He started showing up at my job, yelling in the parking lot. He threatened me on Facebook, posted rants about how I was a bitter, childless woman trying to destroy his family. My mom joined in too, calling me an attention seeker and telling me that I was tearing the family apart. My sister-in-law filed a restraining order against me, claiming that I was stalking them and trying to kidnap their daughter. It was a complete circus. Then things escalated even worse. One night, my brother broke into my house. I wasn't home, thank God, but he kicked in the back door and trashed my living room, looking for proof that I was hiding his daughter. The neighbors called the cops, and he got arrested for trespassing and destruction of property. The officer who came to take my statement told me it was one of the ugliest domestic cases he'd ever seen. That was the final straw. CPS reopened the case and finally removed my niece again. This time they placed her with me, and I filed for full custody. The court battle dragged on for over a year. My brother tried everything to stall the case and even accused me of brainwashing his daughter into testifying against him. He didn't realize that she didn't need convincing. On the stand, my niece told the judge everything. The violence, The threats, how her mom always looked the other way, and how the only person who ever made her feel safe was me. I cried in that courtroom while she spoke, and I saw the judge's face harden when she showed the scar on her arm from when my brother pushed her into a bookshelf. After that, the decision came fast. The judge granted me permanent custody and issued a restraining order against both my brother and sister-in-law. My niece was finally safe. I thought that was the end of it, but I was wrong again. 3 months later, the feds showed up. Apparently, my brother had been involved in an underground gun ring, and the assault charges had triggered a deeper investigation. They asked me to testify against him in court, not just about the abuse, but about other things I'd seen over the years, things I hadn't thought mattered. Turns out they did. I agreed. I owed it to my niece. Testifying against your own blood in federal court is something I wouldn't wish on anyone, but I did it. I told the truth, and when the judge sentenced my brother to 18 years without parole, I felt like I could finally breathe. My mum hasn't spoken to me since, and honestly, I'm okay with that. She made her choice. My niece is 16 now. She just passed her driver's test last week, and we went out to celebrate with milkshakes and fries. She asked if she could call me mum sometimes, and I had to excuse myself to cry in the bathroom. I never asked for this life, and I still mourn the family I thought I had. But as protecting her cost me everything else, it was still worth it. I'd do it all again.